How's it feel to betray your own race? You think you're one of them?
From Titanic to the Avatar franchise, James Cameron has created some of the most timeless classics. But even then, not everything is perfect when it comes to his work. In fact, there's one big problem that has been egging the viewers. Now, you don't have to be an Avatar fan to have heard of Avatar: The Way of Water. It is, after all, one of the most hyped movies that was ever released. Most people had already given up in a second part. I mean, the first one was great. It broke so many records and stayed on the top for years. But it was released 12 years ago. That's a lot. And of course, you'd stop expecting another part after that much time. So, when James announced that this movie would be coming out, you bet people were excited. And it got pretty good reviews too. But there's one problem that's been constantly arising between fans: the fact that the movie has a high frame rate. Now, usually that won't be a problem. After all, the higher the frame rate, the better the quality. And it gives special attention to the details too, making them more prominent. But the thing is, this also made it seem a bit too much like a video game.
Your man. See you on the flight line.
Me personally, I didn't have too much of a problem with this new style. Of course, I'd rather it wasn't a common thing among movies, but it suited The Way of Water, and with the amazing visuals, it came together pretty good. But of course, like always, there are people of varying opinions, and many fans seem to dislike the style. The Avatar universe has a number of different creatures, each more beautiful and stranger than the last.
The Sky People have sent us a message that they can take whatever they want.
Not to mention the Na'vi themselves are quite interesting creatures, so I guess paired with their vibrant blue color, the number of frames per second can make it seem more like a cartoon or game. And the thing is, it's very likely that James won't be the only one experimenting with this type of development. The usual number of frames per second for a movie is 24, but it looks like it isn't enough for the filmmakers, because now they're experimenting with a higher number of frames. This adds more color and definition to the scenes, and highlights the little details that wouldn't have been that obvious in the usual format.
Okay, well, no truncal ataxia, that's good.
Are you feeling lightheaded or dizzy at all? Are you wiggling your toes?
Good, thanks.
So, if they're successful in this, it could be a great milestone for the movie industry. The already realistic and visually appealing movies will get even better. But the problem is, this is going to take a while. Not that much, mind you. After all, with the pace our world is developing right now, there's no way something as small as this won't be perfected soon. But right now, 48 frames per second isn't perfect. And the evidence is pretty clear in the new Avatar movie. I mean, that's double the usual amount. So it's no wonder the movie was so vibrant. And sure, it wasn't perfect, but as always, it was still a job well done. Still, it looks like some Twitter fans weren't happy with the result. Would they have preferred that James stuck to the old way, or were they expecting better results? I'm not quite sure. And while the criticism isn't completely unfounded, we need to consider the fact that this was just an experiment, and a mere start to yet another big development in the film industry.
Oh, come on, you ain't got no skills. I don't even have to play defense on
Hey guys. Hey.
We need to be patient. After all, there are many chances that we'll be getting a third movie. Actually, there are rumors that this franchise will even get a fourth part, though this probably isn't true, and if the visuals of the second movie are this good, even if it looks a bit too much like a video game, we can only think about how incredible the third movie will be. And of course, by then, they'll have overcome this problem too, so it'll look much more hyper-realistic. It seems after all the complaints from fans, the director has decided to address the issue himself. It started when Andrew J. Salazar took to Twitter to respond to the criticisms. He revealed that one of the attendees said that they didn't like the usage of the new high frame rates. They pointed out that it looked too much like a video game. It seems James is well aware of the problem and said that some people were more bothered by it than others. But at the end of the day, their goal is simply to keep on improving it.
It's all over.
Nothing.
it's over while I'm breathing.
Delving deeper into the problem, James mentioned that the audience had more of a problem with the scenes on land rather than the ones underwater. Apparently, this is because the high frame rates work perfectly underwater, but have somewhat of an adverse effect on the land scenes. The high frame rate's main purpose is to help the 3D, but there is still a long way to go before that is perfected. But this isn't the first time James has talked about his new experiment with high frame rates. He also addressed it at the Busan International Film Festival in South Korea. He explained it in great detail the reasons behind his decision. James said that they're using higher frame rates to improve the 3D and provide the audience with a heightened sense of presence. He continued that this would provide much better immersion for scenes that involve flying or going underwater. On the other hand, it would work against them in scenes of people simply standing around and talking. That's because the high frame rates create a sense of hyper-realism in scenes that are simple and normal. He added that is when they need the 24 frames per second cinematic feeling. Unfortunately for James, theaters don't support switching between 24 FPS and 48 FPS. Hence, he had to decide on one of them. In the end, it was his call, and he stuck with the 48 FPS version. The whole time, he kept saying that it was a straightforward hack to use the high frame rate platform that already exists. Well, even though there were complaints, James didn't exactly make the wrong decision. A lot of the scenes in the movie were downright amazing to watch at the higher frame rate. Not to mention the positive feedback is far more than the negative feedback. That said, Avatar isn't the first movie to use a higher frame rate, nor is it the first movie which has been criticized for making that decision. When Peter Jackson first released The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, many viewers complained that the extra frames interfered with the suspension of disbelief. Rather than seeing the hobbits, they saw actors in hobbit makeup. Then there was Ang Lee's Billy Lynn's long halftime walk, with its 120 frame per second. I mean, that's a pretty huge jump, one that didn't pay off. More recently, there was Gemini Man, starring Will Smith. You just didn't feel like you were watching characters in a high-stakes action movie. Instead, it felt like a documentary of Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Will Smith at a table. Unlike The Way of Water, the first Avatar film was completely in 24 FPS. But James is known for being innovative in his filmmaking, so we can only hope his decision regarding frame rates pays off in the third part by fixing its flaws. Of course, it'd be very convenient if the projector in the theater could just switch between different frame rates, but it doesn't seem like that'll be happening anytime soon.
You get me what I need, I'll see to it you get your legs back when you rotate home. Your real legs.
That sounds real good, sir.
Well, this is all for what James Cameron has to say about one of the biggest complaints about Avatar 2.